Welcome to the StudioPTBO podcast. We are back, and we are back with another guest. This is a year of guests. This is a year of talking about marketing. You have entered into the StudioPTBO podcast, where we talk to business owners specifically about just how they can market their businesses, how they can kind of walk in to 2019 with fresh ideas and really establish what it means to build your brand in 2019. I am joined here with Adam Mckinlay and Neil Morden. How you guys doing?
Great.
Hey, good.
Awesome. It's a good day. We got Adam on. Adam's been preparing for this episode for a week now. So.
Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah. I found out I was going to be on the show all of 30 seconds ago. Yeah.
That's not the truth. That's not the truth at all.
But that brings me to the segue. This is content creation.
100%.
This is part of what we tell clients. Document your day. Don't overthink stuff. Just go with it. Go with the flow. Like I'd said to Adam today, if we had prepared for this show a week ago and I'd sent him questions, chances are I wouldn't do that anyway.
Chances are I would have called in sick today.
and chances are Neil wouldn't have sent the questions.
I tend to improvise my way through life, but it's got me this far. It's got me to this table with you awesome gents.
Just look at you. Just you shoot out whose line is it anyway.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mind coming on.
But super excited to talk about Adam today about design. He's been with the company for 8 years now. Is it 7 years?
7. Yep.
7 years.
7 years in July.
Boy, have you seen a lot of changes and entering into this social media age. And what's that look like for you? It's the design principles stayed the same pretty much over time, or have you had to really kind of adapt to innovate to social media?
No, landscape's definitely changed over the years, even since I've been here. I mean, when I went to school probably 12 years ago now, you learn certain techniques and certain design styles, and then like that technology goes away, and you kind of gotta adapt to the change. So I've had to do that along the way here too.
On the fly.
Constantly learning and, YouTube videos and social media, following other people to see what they're doing.
And where do you get your inspiration now, design-wise? Is it literally is it on a lot of it on social culture, like Instagram, YouTube, or is it still traditional? Like, do you read art, glossy magazines and stuff like that? Or
not as much magazines anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have time for it. I got 2 kids at home, so it's the chances I have to sit down with a magazine and leaf through it are very rare now. But online you just see what other people are doing, take inspiration from that, and it doesn't always need to be design. It can be inspiration from anything. As I know some of the listeners can't see this, but I brought in a few items here that I keep on my desk every day, and they're just kind of like some 80s nostalgia pieces that I like. There's an E.T., a Slimer from Ghostbusters, and my King Kong bank. Just stuff like this I like to keep on my desk, and it kind of just, I don't know, inspires me to just keep going.
And the one thing that I remember, it's funny that we look at something like that. I remember you creating that little Lego, a motion graphic for Neil for PTBO Canada when we hit 50,000 social fans on our platform. It was 50,000 when we did that.
Yeah, you're right.
So I remember when you did that, so maybe to walk me through the process of what that took in order to create some sort of motion graphic, because right now a lot of people are doing video and they're telling their story that way. What was the process and how did that work? How did you create that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a big Lego fan anyway, and I got kids at home, as I mentioned, so always playing with Lego. And then Neil came to us and said, we're about to hit 50,000 social followers on PTBO Canada. What can we do? We're looking for something a little bit different. And so I looked down at my desk and saw some inspiration that was right in front of me. But either way, instead of just going with a digital graphic, we actually set up a Lego diorama that had the 50,000 kind of spelled out. And what we did is just actually built the bricks and took a picture, like a stop motion of every scene, and then cut it all together in the end. And it, then it looked like a stop motion video of someone of the 50,000 building, and then a little man walking in.
So what I want Rob to do is over top of that, what I really want you to do is kind of have the screen, and then actually in the bottom corner put the actual motion graphic when you're talking about it, because I think that'll be really cool to kind of
show them what they did.
Yeah, show them exactly what you did. So so the inspiration came from you just having inspiration in Lego. What did that process, what did Neil say to you? He's just go crazy?
Well, first of all, I gave him 5 minutes notice probably.
That's honest.
With this show.
No, we had a bit more notice because I had time to prepare for it and bring it in. But Yeah, Neil just came and said, let's do something different.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times it's just, making up if you only have very limited time, you just put up a quick graphic that
Totally.
you build digitally in Illustrator, InDesign, or Photoshop, and you just put it up, and that's it. But this was something a little more involved. Had some camera work and some stitching together of all the photos. And I don't know,
It did
just
well,
gave it
too.
gave it a different
It did
effect.
really well.
Just gave a different effect than just putting up 50,000 on the screen.
Yeah, I always tell people, and Cody is the same, like do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And I think you guys, the design team here, you and Emma and Nora, like really approach it too. Like you always want to work with the client to create something that fits with their sensibility and tone, but you always are trying to push things, right, as much as you can, and let's try and be a little bit different in terms of how it's going to transfer onto social media to really stop the scroll, if you will, right?
Yeah, when time allows it. And we also do have some what I'm going to call dummy accounts that we post content to, and it only shows up in our feed. We have it private just to us, but then we see how it works against other things in our feed. So when we test something, we'll put it up onto one of these test feeds, and then we scroll ourselves and say,
I didn't know you had a dummy account. That's so cool.
We do.
Did you know that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, how do I get in as part of this dummy account? Because I'm a dummy.
It's private.
Well, that's how you avoid
private.
putting up a bunch of mistakes
that's
too,
how you're
because you
beta
see how
testing
it's
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see how it's going to look on an Instagram, like in an actual Instagram feed.
Well, because when you put in perspective, like, there's so many different ways to post to Instagram. Some people are posting, 1080 by 1350. Some people are posting in a 1:1 ratio. Some people are posting wide. It's like, so, like essentially that dummy account gives them the ability to kind of beta test and figure out, is this actually going to work on the platform? What is it going to look like in the feed? What is it going to look like on the actual tiles when you click on the profile? So it gives them a better idea when they're posting motion graphics on how to physically look at what.
Yeah. So you do beta test a bit before it goes out, unlike us. Who just
Well, plus if you have a longer clip of something and it's got to be trimmed down to say 15 seconds for a story or something like that, then you can kind of see how it's going to work and where you cut it. And
how do you keep up with all the changes in the different platform? Like the 1:1, the 1080 by 1350, the 9:16 on Instagram. Like Instagram is like one of those weird platforms that has so many different sizing ratios.
Yeah.
Like
Whether
how
it's a
do
story
you
or on
as
the feed.
how do you as a design team keep up to date specifically with like what's changing all the time? Because it seems like graphic design's always changing, and like your formats are always changing.
Yeah. Well, years ago you're designing websites for screens that are like 800 by 600 resolution.
Yeah.
And now it's like it's 4K, or you're going huge with the larger screens too, and having it to be also responsive to go anywhere from like a small cell phone size to a tablet, and then morph into say a huge screen or monitor, one of these big iMacs. You do have to adapt a lot of times for social. The platforms will put out the 2018 Facebook optimal sizing.
Yeah.
And it sucks when it changes and you've kind of built someone's campaign around something, and then you change it and you got to go resave all the graphics out. But that's just nature of the beast. You just gotta
Totally.
Yeah, you
gotta roll with it. Yeah.
It's funny that you got to roll with it. Innovate or die is something that we talked about on last week on the podcast.
100%.
And these platforms are always changing and they're always ever evolving, and you always have to learn, to do things from a video perspective, even from a graphic design perspective. You're always, learning, because like if you don't innovate, you get left behind.
What do you think about what we've been doing here with documenting everything we're doing? And I feel like you have sort of bought into it, and you've immersed yourself in what we're doing. You sort of understand what
I don't know
we're
if he
doing.
likes the camera on his face every day.
Here's what's interesting. I've noticed you documenting your weekends more with your kids, like, and telling your story. And I said, you came in on Monday morning. I said, Adam, I don't need to ask you how your weekend went because I already know. Like, I know everything you do with your kids, and I'm like, I want to be your kid because you're super dad.
Yeah.
But have you noticed that you're actually documenting more too, personally?
I do. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just
Self-consciously?
sometimes it's just to not even documenting it for myself. It's to keep family and friends kind of up to date with what you're doing. Like
cool.
My parents go to Florida for the winter, so I don't get to talk to them on a daily basis, but my mom will be like, oh, I see what you did this week with the kids. That's awesome. You only have limited time to talk as long distance and just limited time. So
is your mom following you on Instagram? Or
she is.
She is?
Yeah.
Your mom's on Instagram?
My mom's on Instagram.
I'm telling you, like, this is where culture is right now on Instagram. And Cody was saying the other day, it's maturing, right? It's
my
it's
mom's
not
69 years old on Instagram.
People, listen to this. Facebook is this, Instagram, Twitter, like, your audience, the widest demographic imaginable is on social media. Everyone and their grandmother and their mother and Adam's mother is on social media. Like, it's
Well,
true.
and I like what you said, like, cause like I've had so many conversations with business owners over the past like 6 months just about this concept where it's like, they think because the business itself isn't posting anything on social media that means their target audience must not be active on social media. It's not the case though. It's like, people are interacting with people, and you have the ability to essentially create content, get it in front of them, and they're just there. They're there. They might not post anything. You and I have had this conversation.
They're watching.
They're probably just observing if you're not posting anything on the platform.
Yeah, they're creeping, and creeping in the good sense of the word.
Yeah. I feel like there's like two different kinds of social people. There's you see people that post every day, all the time, multiple times a day, and then you get those who you might see a post once a month out of.
Introverts and extroverts. I mean, for us, we have to walk the
I
walk.
like how you put that. Introverts, there's introverts on social media, and there's extroverts on social media.
Yeah.
Never thought about it that way.
But I don't know if the introverts on social media are introverts in the real world, or it's just that they lack confidence.
Yeah, like
but they'll come out of their shell as they watch and observe.
100%. Because a lot of people are just afraid to post content because they're like, oh, what am I supposed to say? My life's boring. But like, it's like, like for you, like you're posting more with your kids. You're doing that for a reason. You're doing that because you want to share those stories with your parents because your parents are.
And you're documenting. Your kids can look back someday at these moments. It's pretty cool, right? We didn't have that as
it's
kids.
interesting to think what'll happen in 20 years when my kids or however long down the road when I'm like passed away. Are these things still gonna like remain memories where my kids go back and look like, here's my feed of my life? Like I go home to my parents, I like bring out the old photo albums and I like leaf
it's
through
old
them.
school, right?
Is this gonna be like, oh, let's bring up Dad's old Instagram account and we
I really hope it's not gonna be like MySpace because like I tried you're probably a MySpace guy back in the day. You played in bands, so I tried to go back to our old band MySpace, and like
they shut it down recently.
They shut it down. Yeah, like there's no you can't listen to people's music anymore. And I'm like, there's so many bands.
Tumblr will go that route.
There's so many bands out there that I want to listen to, but I can't
trying
listen
to
to
show the guys downstairs.
Pardon?
Can't you go to Wayback Machine for that?
I've never even heard of that.
Wayback Machine is like an internet archive.
Okay, maybe I'll check that out.
A lot of but it is sad. I think your kids have a window of probably, I think 10 years on Instagram at least. So, but your kids will be almost 20 in 10 years, or I don't know, 18, 20. So they'll look back at their childhood years.
I think these platforms also have like, MySpace was culture sort of, but it didn't take as big of a hit. It didn't do as much as Instagram and, Twitter. Like it didn't have as big of exposure as, perfect example right now is you ask somebody that was born 2000 plus, they have no idea what even MySpace is. I saw a meme the other day on Instagram. I
saw the same one. It says, I wish my Twitter account could play a song when somebody comes to it. And someone's like, this kid's obviously never heard of MySpace. I just hear
so
that.
Good.
But it is interesting. Like that's how quickly things change and how we have to adapt on the fly. But I love that you're doing that and documenting and you are... I don't know if it's because of us or you're just realizing that it's okay to do this. It's okay to tell your story and what you're doing day to day. And it may be mundane to some people, but other people they're watching and they 100%. Find it really interesting.
Yeah,
right?
I know. Yeah, sometimes it's just like picture my kids in the living room, like watching TV or something or reading a book, and it's like,
or in
maybe people don't care about this, but I'm directing in my mind. I'm directing that towards like aunts, uncles, grandparents. But then there's other times when I'll be with a group of friends and we're doing something fun and it's like, you kind of don't want the parents to see that, but I know they're going to. So I'll, keep the PG version and put it up there. But
it's fascinating. And so where do you see design going now? Like, do you find I worked in the magazine world for 20 years and it was like very perfectionist, right? Like in terms of the cover and getting the right shot, glossy shot, getting the cover lines, getting all the photos and all the features we did and up front and back of the book. And do you find as a designer now you have to be sort of less of a perfectionist because of the nature of social media that it can be a little more organic and raw feeling? Or do you find that you still feel that before you release it to the masses, it has to be perfect?
Depends on the medium. I mean, when I'm, there's still some need for print, so I'm still designing from day to day for print materials and, that has to be perfect. But as for social stuff and websites, you can kind of put things out there. I believe that, might not be completely final, but you can always go back and update it or delete it or change it. It's the same thing launching websites. People are always hesitant, got to make sure like every single detail is perfect. And you're like, you know what, if that's not the exact picture you want to use in there, but it serves its purpose for now, just get it up there. At least you're getting traffic to your site. Then don't delay it any longer. You can change the picture next week or next month or whenever.
The worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So what is one piece of advice you have for a business owner that is looking at branding themselves? Like they're looking at creating a logo, or if they're looking at just like designing something that kind of tells the story of their brand. What would you give them as one piece of advice?
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming like fresh with no brand at all, definitely like do your homework, do some research on like what else is out there, who's doing the same thing as you, and look at your competitors' logos, look at your competitors' websites. What are they doing, and how can you do it better? I mean, just to some people come in, you ask them who's your competition in town, and they'll be like, oh, I don't know, I haven't looked who else is doing that. Like what are their logos look like? If your logo's beside theirs and people are holding two products in their hand, yours versus theirs, like why is your package going to stand out more, or why is your logo going to stand out and people will purchase it over someone else's? So
now you think differently than I do.
Okay.
So like when it comes to because like I'm not a designer, so like designers even think different than developers and think different than social media managers and videographers. Like how do you come up with these brand logos? Like take me through the process. So if a client comes to you and says, I want to do a logo, what does that process look like? How do you develop the end result? Like, we developed the StudioPTBO Tell Your Story symbol. Like, if I was a business and I was coming to you for the very first time, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, you got to get to know the client. You gotta pick their brain, or like visit their business, or get into their world a little bit. You can't just, if someone says I need a logo, you might as well send them off to some Fiverr or something to get a quick logo if they don't want to tell you anything about themselves or let you into their world. Because once you get to know them, then their logo can be tailored to them.
Totally.
That's huge. So I ask them, usually starts off with a meeting, and we ask them a ton of questions, and some of them that I just touched on is just like, who are your competitors? What are you doing that's better than them? What do you do that's different? And something like that may reflect in the logo.
Interesting.
Yeah, I love it. He basically is saying the same thing as I would say about creating content in general. It's learn the brand, go and meet them, go to their plate, learn about who they are as a person, learn about how they give back to the community, the sensibility of their brand, how long they've been around. Like, I love that you just answered that, because that's what I tell anyone. Do your due diligence on a brand before you just have at her, right? Because it's not about your vision. It's about, fulfilling their vision and bringing it to life.
Yeah. So how I guess my question is follow up on that. That's a really great answer. Is how conceptually, what do you do once they say, I want to, I want a logo,
like where do I start?
Yeah. Where do you start?
Do you have writer's block ever, Adam? And
yeah. I don't know. I always start off with the font for some reason.
You look at ET and go, what do I do?
Yeah, you do get design block. It is definitely tough to say, working in an office environment, it's tough to come in every day and say okay, 9 to 5, you have to be creative, and then you can turn it off and go home. Yeah. That's difficult to do. Some days I come in and it's just like, man, I have no ideas today. What am I going to do? But, I'm at home 10 o'clock at night. I'm just laying in bed, and then I'm like, bam, I got it. I know what I'm going to do, because your mind's you have time to ponder it.
You echo what every designer's ever told me. Back in Toronto, we would have literally art directors and designers, Cody, that would come in start at noon and work till 1 in the morning, because because they did like to sleep in, and they were out maybe a little late the night before, but B, that's when they're inspired.
Yeah.
He's so right. It's hard to just come in 9 to 5, like it is in a lot of jobs, and be inspired in that 9 to 5 window.
Yep, totally.
Right?
That makes sense.
So, but someday, Adam, you'll be working here till midnight or different hours because of flex hours, and once your kids are
I've been here for 7 years. I've been here till midnight plenty of times.
Yeah. Believe me.
When there's a deadline, there's a deadline.
Yeah,
that must be hard to find inspiration. It's such a good point. Inspiration just doesn't just drop out of the sky at you at 10 a.m. in the morning, because it's hard. You have to sort of force yourself to get inspired, right?
Well, it's like these podcasts. Some days, some days I'm like, we'll be like, let's do a podcast, and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it today. You want it, but you want to be inspired. You want to be inspired to talk about things that you're really passionate about, and graphic design, helping business owners understand this world and step up their game. For me, I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about helping business owners and brands really step up their game on social media. So when you get to talk with somebody like yourself, You know, like it changes things. Like you get, you know, the oomph that you need from other people, I think.
You get inspired by being around other people. Adam, how do potential clients reach out to you if they have questions, they want to set up a meeting with you about a logo, say, or a graphic design? What's the best way to reach Adam? Is it DMing him on Instagram?
Maybe not. I have a private account. I mean, you can DM me from there, but
no, it's private. So I'm lucky to be able to.
Yeah, I only let so many people.
You're
in
so
the world.
privileged. You know, you're so privileged.
It's his Finsta account.
Yeah.
The best way to reach me, I don't know, email, phone, text, carrier pigeon, whatever you, however you want to get. Yeah, walk into the studio and just, I'm usually a face that'll turn around and be like,
walk in the studio and yell, Adam!
Yeah, I love the Adam
sure,
when
that
you come
too.
in. Adam's great on the phone and great at greeting people. And it's, again, we talk personality and culture. You're not just a great designer, but you're a great person, great personable skills. So we really appreciate everything you do.
Thanks, Neil.
And you did a great job considering you had 2 minutes preparation for this podcast today.
There wasn't a whole lot of prep for this podcast.
There was no prep.
That's just honesty. I appreciate honesty.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Adam. And thank you for tuning in to the Studio PTBO podcast. If you want to leave us a review, we greatly appreciate that. Share this with a friend, neighbor, colleague, whatever you want to do with this podcast. We appreciate
Adam's
it.
Adam's
mother, you can share with her.
Shout out on Instagram.
Shout out. Thank you once again for tuning in. We will see you soon.
Thanks, guys.